U.S. President Donald Trump is taking aim once again at Canada's Ontario to Michigan bridge. In a post on social media, Trump says negotiations will begin immediately to ensure that the U.S. owns part of the bridge. Trump says the bridge would be entirely owned by Canada, adding that he will not allow it to open unless the U.S. is fully compensated for everything it has given to Canada. Well, we have more breaking news for you now. U.S. President Donald Trump is taking aim once again at Canada, this time criticizing Canada's building of the Ontario to Michigan bridge. In a post on social media, Trump says negotiations will begin immediately to ensure that the U.S. owns part of the bridge. Trump says the bridge would be entirely owned by Canada, adding that he will not allow it to open unless the U.S. is fully compensated for everything it has given to Canada.
It's the most expensive construction job ever built anywhere in the world per square foot. It's crazy. And they're either corrupt, which somebody's corrupt, has to be, or grossly incompetent. Now, we know he's incompetent, but the question is he corrupt? They're spending, I would have been able to do that job for $25 million, and it would have been much better than what they're ending up with. What they've done to that place is unbelievable. I could have done that job, fully done it, and I'm good at this stuff, for $25 million. I think they're going to come in at $4 billion. So...
But, sir, is it worth holding up the Warsh nomination?
I don't know. I mean, we'll have to see what happens. I would be... look, I've been fighting Tillis for a long time, so much so that he ended up quitting. So let's see. If it happens, it happens. But Jeanine Pirro's doing it. I wasn't involved in it. Jeanine Pirro's doing it. She's very good. She's very strong. And we'll see how it happens.
We have some major news right now. The unredacted Epstein files show that Donald Trump lied about a key part of his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein. Jamie Raskin, a congressman from Maryland, just finished reviewing the unredacted Epstein files that he was able to see because he's a member of Congress. He came out and confirmed that the Department of Justice redacted a section of an Epstein synopsis prepared by Epstein's lawyers. And while that synopsis said that Donald Trump said that Epstein wasn't a member of Mar-a-Lago, but was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and that he was never kicked out. And these documents were from the 2009 period where Epstein was first under investigation. Now that's a problem for the president. Why? Well, because he previously said that back in 2003, 2004, he kicked Epstein out of the Mar-a-Lago club due to inappropriate relationships Epstein had with a spa worker at the Mar-a-Lago club. That was Donald Trump's quotes. That was what Donald Trump said. Well, we're now learning that the DOJ redacted.
Donald Trump is completely losing it tonight as he is now claiming that China will permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup in a deranged post about Canada. Now, this is on Truth Social tonight, where Donald Trump decided to go off on Canada, mostly upset about the opening of the Gordie Howe International Bridge, where Donald Trump is going through his usual saying, we should be compensated for it, we should own half of it, all of that nonsense. But one part of his rant was particularly troubling. Take a listen. Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. We'll just get leftovers. I don't think so. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. What in the world is that? When I tell you the midterms are vital, I can't stress it enough, because stuff like this is normal for Donald Trump and nobody around him is willing to do anything about it. Congress right now certainly isn't going to do anything about it. We are stuck with this unless we can take the 2026 midterms big time. Donald Trump is completely losing it tonight as he is now claiming that
the Epstein files could possibly bring down a British Prime Minister. Why do you think that is happening there, but it's hardly politically hurting an American president?
Well, I think it's important to note that right now the Congress is controlled by Donald Trump's allies. And our Speaker of this House preferred to keep the House of Representatives shut for more than 40 days so that we could not advance the Epstein Files Transparency Act. He is being actively shielded by members of his own party, whereas in other countries, including the UK, members of parliament are demanding accountability. And that is why our plea is to the American people. We need to hold these people accountable. And my message to Donald Trump is, we're coming for you.
Ghislaine Maxwell is now saying that if Donald Trump grants her clemency and releases her from prison, she will clear his name on anything Epstein related. She is very obviously trying to buy her freedom, and this position was stated by Ghislaine Maxwell's lawyer today during her virtual deposition before the House Oversight Committee. The lawyer said Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by Donald Trump. Only she can provide the complete account. Some people may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. For example, both Donald Trump and President Bill Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Of course, Democrats on the committee are accusing Maxwell of trying to buy her clemency by refusing to testify, which is exactly what is happening. Representative Melanie Stansbury said, quote, "We will not allow this silence to stand." So we know what's happening here. We know she's choosing silence to protect Donald Trump. But what's really sad about this story is I think all of us could actually see this happening. We could see Donald Trump taking this deal to protect himself. So keep an eye out here, because genuinely, it would not surprise me in the slightest if Donald Trump lets this criminal out of jail just to protect himself.
Nah, ni a mí mismo confío. Si quieres quedarte, hoy que hace frío y mañana te vas. Nah, muchas quieren mi baby gravy, quieren tener mi primogénito.
Donald Trump has just hit a new milestone, and it is really not a good one for him. It's maybe good for people who believe in better governance, but it's not good for Trump. A new poll shows that 40% approve of Trump's job performance and 58% disapprove. That is minus 18 for Donald Trump. Among independents, only 27% approve, 63 disapprove. This has real consequences. When a president is this deeply unpopular, things break down very quickly. Number one, Congress turns into a battlefield. Members of the president's own party worry about their seats, especially with the midterms coming up. They distance, they block legislation, they hedge every vote. We're starting to see that. We're not going to let Trump take Greenland. We think Trump's going too far here. He's going too far there. Number two, it gets really hard to govern when you are this unpopular, because forget about big reform. You just can't do it. Budgets get very chaotic. Foreign policy credibility drops. Allies and adversaries see weakness and instability. And then number three, midterms are sort of always a referendum on the party that took power 2 years before. But it gets extra dicey if the president is this unpopular. And we've seen this before. Obama was in the low 40s before the 2010 midterms, and Democrats lost the House and lost it pretty badly. Biden was in the low 40s before 2022's midterms, and Democrats lost the House and barely held the Senate. Bush's approval, George W. Bush's approval, collapsed after Iraq and after Katrina, and Republicans got crushed in 2006. Low approval doesn't guarantee a wipeout, but it is definitely a big warning, and Trump is in the danger zone. Every race in 2026 is, in a sense, nationalized, and it is, in a sense, a referendum on Donald Trump. Candidates are going to be asked very similar questions. Do you approve of Donald Trump? Whether you're in the Arkansas 5th District or Illinois 8th or wherever, swing districts, lopsided districts, do you approve of the job that Donald Trump is doing if you're a Republican? And if the answer is no, I don't approve, maybe the voters like that, but Trump doesn't. And then Trump goes after you. Anyway, the point here is polls aren't destiny. Trump has defied polls before, sometimes. But all of that being said, 58% disapproval is not a vibe problem. That is a structural problem for Donald Trump. And if these numbers hold, it's not just going to be unpopular Trump going into the midterms. It is going to be unpopular Trump dragging his own party to the meat grinder in the midterms.
We have news right now. Ghislaine Maxwell says she will only speak publicly and testify if Donald Trump lets her out of prison and grants her clemency. Today, her lawyer, David Oscar Marcus, released a statement to committee members as she invoked her Fifth Amendment and stayed silent during her deposition, and essentially said that she will speak and she will spill the beans in a way if Trump grants her clemency. Quote, if this committee and the American public truly want to hear the unfiltered truth about what happened, there is a straightforward path. Ms. Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. But here's the problem with that statement. Ms. Maxwell, Ghislaine Maxwell, has lied under oath repeatedly based on prior perjury charges and also based on information revealed in the Epstein files that have been released over the past several weeks. So it's very difficult to see how anyone can trust what she has to say, even if she is granted clemency. Spread the word. Full updates on my Substack, linked in bio. Subscribe for free. Follow along for all the news that you need to know about. I'll have more soon.
Speaker, does President Trump owe the Obamas an apology for the video posted to Truth Social on Friday?
The president said that was a big mistake. He did not like it. It was not something that he knew about before it was posted. And I think he's spoken for himself, so I'm not going to add any more words.
Look at this. This is the side of. Give me some volume.
Breaking news as the Ghislaine Maxwell testimony took place, and Rep. Melanie Stansbury from New Mexico came out and blasted it. Blasted this as an entire massive cover-up, the largest cover-up we've ever seen in the history of the United States. I've been saying this, guys. This is the biggest cover-up in the history of the world. This is the largest scandal that involves many multiple different countries, many people. She said that there are at least, that we know of right now, 36 people in Trump's circle that are in these Epstein files, including family members and current cabinet members and officials. Guys, this is massive. And Jamie Raskin, the rep, Jamie Raskin came out and said he looked at some of the unredacted files today and found that Trump had lied about several things, including how he said he kicked Epstein out of the Mar-a-Lago club. Well, it turns out when you look at the unredacted files, Epstein was never a member. He was only ever a guest. So Trump was lying about all that. And we shouldn't be surprised. He lies about everything. So more to come, guys. We're going to get deep into this here very soon now that the Congress members have access to these files, the unredacted files, and we'll see what more fallout happens. Comment what you think, like, share, spread the word, follow, subscribe, and I'll see you back here for the 411.
At Davos, Trump walked back threats on Iran. He says he pulled back because they wanted to talk. On Greenland, it was these bombastic threats. We must have it and we will take it. Followed by, oh, we don't really need to do anything because we've got a deal. Oh, does the deal include that the U.S. gets Greenland? Well, no, it doesn't. So he wants the image of the tough guy without the cost of being the tough guy. So I believe that this is a simple behavioral loop. Trump's primary goal is immediate emotional payoff. He wants applause. He wants viral clips. He wants headlines that make him look big and strong. That pushes rhetoric towards the extreme. You get more attention with extremist rhetoric. But there's also this transactional risk-averse component to Donald Trump. He doesn't want wars that could fail. He doesn't want policies that could crash markets. And remember what happened when he was getting closer on the tariff Norway, because they didn't give him the Nobel Prize, and then tariff Denmark because Norway didn't give him the Nobel Prize, and whatever it was, Greenland something or other, it started crashing the markets, and within 24 hours, Trump backed off because he doesn't actually want the real sacrifice that it might take to do the things he claims he wants to do. So the action lags the rhetoric always, and sometimes we never get the action. This creates a credibility paradox. Even his own allies stop taking his rhetoric seriously, which is dangerous. I'm going to get back to that. But even his own allies just go, Elon or J.D. Vance, whatever. They don't listen to his speeches. It doesn't matter what he says. It's just what's going on behind the scenes. They realize that the rhetoric is a lot of the content, and then the governing is a completely different mess. It's still a mess. It's not the rhetoric is crazy, but this is a completely sensible administration on policy. It's the rhetoric is crazy, and also he starts to back off as soon as it gets difficult, and then he does other things that don't make sense, and we lose allies, and we lose trade deals, and we lose all of it. So this is not about a single policy. This is how leaders like Trump behave. They make very loud promises, some symbolic actions. They retreat when it gets difficult. And then ultimately, they end up creating a huge mess without actually fixing any of the problems they want to fix.
So Jeffrey Epstein's accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell, is offering Donald Trump a deal. If the president lets her out of prison, she will clear his name, she says. This is what her lawyer put out today. Miss Maxwell is prepared to speak fully and honestly if granted clemency by President Trump. Only she can provide the complete account. Some may not like what they hear, but the truth matters. For example, both President Trump and President Clinton are innocent of any wrongdoing. Ms. Maxwell alone can explain why, and the public's entitled to that explanation. Why anyone would believe what Maxwell has to say is one thing, but we also know that President Trump hasn't ruled out the possibility, so far at least, of giving Maxwell some sort of pardon. We'll wait to see how he responds to this, but he'll probably welcome the fact that she's saying he's completely innocent. Trump and Clinton both named in the Epstein files, but that on its own doesn't prove any wrongdoing or criminal behavior.
President Donald Trump is here in Florida for the weekend, but he is calling one of the members of Team USA at the Winter Olympics in Italy a, quote, real loser, adding that he believes it will be difficult to cheer on this person. Now, this comes after freestyle skier Hunter Hess said this. Take a listen.
I think it brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
Those comments, which came during a press availability late last week, received criticism from a number of conservatives online, and now from the president himself, who wrote this, quote, U.S. Olympic skier Hunter Hess, a real loser, says he doesn't represent his country in the current Winter Olympics. If that's the case, he shouldn't have tried out for the team, and it's too bad he's on it. Very hard to root for someone like this. Make America great again. This comes as Vice President J.D. Vance represents the administration at the Olympics, and he did not receive the warmest of welcomes. As he was shown on the big screen during the opening ceremony, there were spectators that booed, illustrating some of the pushback the United States is receiving on the world stage.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think. It's a little hard. There's obviously a lot going on that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I think a lot of people aren't. I think for me, it's more I'm representing my friends and family back home, the people that represent it before me, all the things that I believe are good about the U.S. I just think if it aligns with my moral values, I feel like I'm representing it. Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
President Trump has called your teammate Hunter Hess a real loser. Would anybody like to address that or talk about how you feel representing Team USA right now?
Obviously, my parents being immigrants, this one definitely hits pretty close to home. And I think in moments like these, it is really important for us to unite and kind of stand up for one another, for all that's going on. And I think that I'm really proud to represent the United States. The U.S. has given my family and I so much opportunity, but I also think that we are allowed to voice our opinions on what's going on. And I think that we need to lead with love and compassion. And I would love to see some more of that.
So this evening, Donald Trump has attacked Canada again on Truth Social, this time because of a bridge. That's right. This is in regards to the Gordon Howe Bridge, which is spanned across Ontario and Michigan. And so he's very upset about the fact that Canada owns the entire bridge. The reason why that is because it was built by Canadians and paid for by Canadians, and the United States didn't give a single cent towards its construction. So it belongs to us. He wants half of the bridge. He wants the American side. And then he went on to talk about a few other things. One flew over the cuckoo nest. Just remember that. Okay. So after he talked about the bridge, he then talked about dairy tariffs and how unfair Canada was. Canada is just so unfair to the United States. Honestly, we're just despicable people. And the dairy tariffs, which have, of course, never been enacted, and what he actually agreed to in his first term. But his viewers can't get that. You know, they can't see past that. So then we start talking about ice hockey. Yeah, in the same sentence. And that China is stealing and destroying Canadian hockey. That's right, he said that. And also that China is going to steal the Stanley Cup. Yeah, anyway, so he's not happy with Canada. Oh yeah, I forgot, he talked about the liquor as well, that, you know, there's no liquor on Ontario shelves from the United States. Very unfair, very unfair. Anyway, so that was pretty much it. He wants to be compensated by Canada for all those things. So there we go. This is...
So as soon as the Department of Justice has not sent forth its so-called privilege log, so it's not explained yet why there might be certain redactions that have been made. I saw one document which was an email that was sent by Jeffrey Epstein to Ghislaine Maxwell, which was the forward of an email that he had received from some of his lawyers, giving an account of a conversation between Epstein lawyers and Trump lawyers and others about what had taken place during that 2009 period. It was during the period of the 2009 investigation. And Epstein's lawyers synopsized and quoted Trump as saying that that Jeffrey Epstein was not a member of his club at Mar-a-Lago, but he was a guest at Mar-a-Lago, and he had never been asked to leave. And that was redacted for some indeterminate, inscrutable reason. I know it seems to be at odds with some things that President Trump has been saying recently about how he had kicked Jeffrey Epstein out of his club or asked him to leave, and this was at least one report that appears to contradict. The Department of Justice.
I'm not going to waste your time going over this whole thing because he's just bitching about a bridge in Canada and about Barack Hussein Obama and Canada not using our steel and all this shit. But there is one part of it that's really funny, especially knowing that a lot of my followers are Canadian. On top of everything else, Prime Minister Carney wants to make a deal with China, which will eat Canada alive. I'll just get the leftovers. I don't think so. The first thing China will do is terminate all ice hockey being played in Canada and permanently eliminate the Stanley Cup. Since many of you are Canadian, I know you already know this, but for those of you who are not, in 1994, Canada passed the National Sports of Canada Act, which made two national sports, a winter national sport, which is ice hockey, and a summer national sport, which is lacrosse. He's currently made like 3 deals supposedly with China during this same term. Is he claiming that we're gonna lose baseball or football? I don't think so, but he is claiming that you Canadians, if you have the gall to go out and make a deal with China, no one is ever going to play ice hockey ever again. And also the Stanley Cup, which most of the teams are in the US anyway, so I don't know how that has anything to do with Canada, will be permanently eliminated. Just so you know, we live in the stupidest fucking timeline possible.
New U.S. inflation numbers are out this week, and here's what I'm going to be keeping a close eye on. You see, there's a bit of a riddle tied up in the U.S. economy. Tariffs have driven up the cost of key components, key industrial inputs like steel and aluminum and copper and lumber. But so far, at least, the cost of those tariffs has not been passed on to consumers. Now, the Trump administration has been adamant that tariffs don't cause inflation, but they also say foreign countries pay for the tariffs, even though we know it's American companies importing these goods that pay the tariff bill. So what's really going on? Well, part of the question is whether these extra costs have been averted or merely delayed. Remember, American companies knew these tariffs were coming, so they stockpiled, and they stockpiled a lot before the tariffs kicked in. Over the last 10 months or so, though, those stockpiles have begun to dwindle and be depleted. And there's all kinds of signs in the surveys now and the producer price indexes that are showing us that the cost pressures on these American companies are building. Now, all that in mind, there's two kind of weird caveats to keep in mind here. One is that we're still dealing with gaps in the data because American workers weren't out getting those numbers during the government shutdown in the fall. So there's gaps about what we know was really happening in the economy in October, November, and December. The other one is that gasoline prices fell considerably in December. So that'll drag down the overall headline rate of inflation, even if those input costs are going up. So watch for evidence of the tariffs when the inflation numbers come out on Friday. But there's one thing we've learned over the last year. It's every time we think we have a sense of what's about to happen in the economy, the numbers come out and they surprise us.
Patriotism is not loyalty to a president. Patriotism is not loyalty to a particular political party. Patriotism is not loyalty to whatever military mission the president decides to send the troops into. Patriotism at its core is a loyalty to values and ideas. And sometimes that means you have to criticize the people in power in order to be patriotic. This is a very old American idea, by the way. But MAGA and people who support Trump want you to believe that if you say anything like this, somehow you are not patriotic. They are lying to you because they are desperate. Here is Olympian Chris Lillis, who said that as he looks at what's happening with ICE, protests, and people's rights not being respected, that he is heartbroken.
I feel heartbroken about what's happened in the United States when, I'm pretty sure you're referencing ICE and some of the protests and things like that. I think that as a country, we need to focus on respecting everybody's rights and making sure that we're treating our citizens as well as anybody with love and respect. And I hope that when people look at athletes compete in the Olympics, they realize that that's the America that we're trying to represent.
So he says he's heartbroken about what's happening in the United States around ICE and the protests, as am I, as I know many of you are. But then he says something that's very important politically, which is we need to focus on respecting people's rights and making sure we are treating our citizens as well as anybody, and important as well as anybody, with love and respect. Notice what he is doing there. And it's so critical that you understand that MAGA wants to make you believe that these sorts of statements are, first of all, controversial, but that they are unpatriotic, that they are un-American. But there is nothing more American. I mean, what happened to these constitutionalists who used to say that they were the real, the Republicans that said they are the real defenders of law and order? They understand that America living up to its values is a worthy cause. And sometimes the president's stewardship pushes the country away from its values. Historically, that is what most protest movements in the United States have claimed to be doing. Civil rights, anti-war movements, labor movements. They frame themselves as, we want to make the country better. The country is going in the wrong direction. Now, here's why this is politically dangerous for MAGA messaging. The political strategy for years has been, let's frame any of our critics as radical, as anti-American, as out-of-touch elites. Sometimes they would apply these words they didn't understand. They're Marxists, they're anarchists, or communists, or whatever. People who hate the country at the end of the day. It is much more difficult to do that when the people criticizing policy are Olympic athletes wearing USA uniforms on a world stage.
Epstein believed that Donald Trump went to the Palm Beach police and said, Jeffrey Epstein has young girls at his house, thereby beginning the legal process which would ultimately bring Jeffrey Epstein down.
We know that there are more than 36 associates, family members, and individuals directly associated with Donald Trump named in those files. Now, there are now at least 9 or 10 other countries across the world that have opened investigations or forced their leaders to step down because of their mere association with Jeffrey Epstein. And the United States government is engaged in an active cover-up of the largest sex trafficking scandal and influence peddling scandal in the history of the United States, and Donald Trump is right at the center of it. And the person who is living to provide the evidence, who knows what is going on, is trying to invoke the Fifth to buy her clemency.
Here's what President Donald Trump had to say about Bad Bunny's halftime show. He called the show, quote, absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. Bad Bunny's performance featured stars including Lady Gaga and Ricky Martin. He also delivered a unifying message, expanding the meaning of God Bless America.
Absolutely terrible, one of the worst ever. It makes no sense. This is how Trump describes Bad Bunny's halftime show at the Super Bowl. Nobody understands a word this guy is saying.
Hey,
the words are Spanish. Somewhere around 60 million Americans can speak and understand Spanish. And fun fact, only one country in the entire world has more Spanish speakers than the United States. That's Mexico. But Trump continues, this show is just a slap in the face to our country. Now, I'm gonna guess, no matter what language Bad Bunny sang in, Trump knew he wasn't going to like what he saw, because at the Grammys, Bad Bunny took a stand against ICE.
Before I say thanks to God, I'm gonna say ICE out.
And so when the NFL announced last year that Bad Bunny would be playing the Super Bowl halftime show, Trump and right-leaning media leaned away.
The NFL just chose the Bad Bunny Rabbit or whatever his name, this guy who hates ICE. He doesn't like you.
I never heard of him. I don't know who he is. I don't know why they're doing it. It's like crazy.
This fits a pattern with Donald Trump, where his measure of a person's patriotism is whether they agree with his policies.
It brings up mixed emotions to represent the U.S. right now, I think.
I'll give you another example. Hunter Hess, half-pipe skier for Team USA, competing at the 2026 Olympic Games.
Just because I'm wearing the flag doesn't mean I represent everything that's going on in the U.S.
He grew up in Oregon, has 4 World Cup podiums, 2 X Games bronze medals, but also, to Donald Trump, a real loser. Says he doesn't represent his country. He shouldn't have tried out for the team, and it's too bad he's on it. And Trump's chief of protocol sees disagreement with the president the same way. Represent America with pride or GTFO. Get the F out. And you can keep going back. Remember when Trump threatened to take away Rosie O'Donnell's American citizenship? Or when he ripped into the women's soccer team for getting knocked out of the 2023 World Cup? Calling out players like Megan Rapinoe, who took a knee during the U.S. anthem, as openly hostile to America. Woke equals failure. That itself was, of course, in support of Colin Kaepernick doing the same, protesting racial inequality and police brutality in the United States.
Wouldn't you love to see one of these NFL owners, when somebody disrespects our flag, to say, get that son of a bitch off the field right now, out, he's fired. He's fired!
Except what Trump sees as un-American, unpatriotic, and disloyal, his critics see as one of the most American things there is. Free speech, defiance, dissent.
The travel bans and visa suspensions have upended routine work, marriage, and family visa processes, leaving many U.S. citizens across the country in limbo. Over the last few weeks, we've spoken with some of them, including one man who asked us not to use his name because he worries it might affect his Brazilian husband's visa application.
Hi, my name is Samantha Cuffey.
I'm David Swizon.
My name is Chris Jundeff.
My name is Ashley Ramos. I recently remarried 3 years ago to my husband, who's from Morocco. I am a mom of 5, and I'm a public school teacher that teaches Spanish.
My entire family actually are originally from the island of Dominica and migrated here in the late 80s, early 90s. And I was born shortly after, and I have enjoyed the place.
This NSA whistleblower news story, I don't understand why not more people are talking about it. Because this is a lot bigger than what people understand. This all stems back to a phone call last spring. The NSA saw it. They said it was very unusual inside of it, at least according to this whistleblower's attorney. It says here the call involved 2 members of a foreign intelligence and mentioned someone close to Donald Trump. This intelligence was then handed off to the Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, who buried it. You see, usually when there's a whistleblower complaint, it takes about 21 days for that to get in front of the people who then reviews it to see what's going on. Those people, by the way, is Congress. Yes, in Congress, they're supposed to get the whistleblower complaint. Instead, Gabbard took it to the chief of staff of Donald Trump. That, of course, is Susie Wiles. And the next day after she dropped this document off, Gabbard then told the NSA to not publish the report at all. And the classified information was then only routed to her office only, where it sat for over 8 months. Whistleblower then hired an attorney who then went to the inspector general and said, hey, this is not right. This was supposed to get to Congress. Instead, she's sitting on this. Well, now Democrats are accusing the director of national intelligence, at least her office, on burying.
Things like this are why people voted for Trump.
We have some serious news right now that will fundamentally kill local media channels across the country, and here's what you need to know, because Donald Trump just endorsed a merger that could fundamentally change media as we know it. So I previously talked about the Nexstar-Tegna merger, and well, look at what the president posted today. We need more competition against the enemy. He's referring to local media. The fake news national TV networks. Letting good deals get done like Nexstar-Tegna will help knock out the fake news because there will be more competition and at a higher and more sophisticated level. Those that are opposed don't fully understand how good the concept of this deal is for them, but they will in the future. But if you want to know why people oppose this deal, well, it's because it'll fundamentally destroy local media networks that so many people rely on. For reference, Nexstar is literally the biggest owner of TV stations across the country. And if this deal is successful, Nexstar would control about 80% of the local TV networks that households rely on. The FCC, which controls these types of things, well, they typically have a cap, 39%. That's the max you could own as a company. Well, if this merger were to go through, that would shoot up to 80% ownership. Complete violation of FCC standards. And if you want to know why Donald Trump is talking about it now, well, it's because there's a big hearing to discuss this very issue on February 10th, this week, in front of the United States Senate, hosted by Ted Cruz. And it's pretty clear that this White House and this president are trying to walk Republicans on the Hill into a pretty big political mess. And now, all it is they want to raise the cost for you to watch local TV. Spread the word and follow along for more.
The White House doctor says Trump is essentially a robust athlete, is what we are meant to believe. Active lifestyle and regularly winning golf tournaments and completely normal physical and neurological function. But then you watch the videos and you see these clips where Trump's right leg is dragging as he takes this wide-based gait, and the right leg swings like a semicircle. One of the most viral examples is from just a few months ago when he was walking with his grandson. And clinical experts have pointed out that that kind of movement can signal a pretty serious neurological issue. Could be a previous stroke, could be frontotemporal dementia, where a side of the body is acting kind of like a dead weight. We look at Trump's face. Remember the pictures from the 9/11 anniversary that shows what looks like a droopy, slanted mouth with extraordinarily asymmetrical movement? White House says he was tired. Tired's getting a lot of work lately, especially when we were told he's never tired. He only needs 4 hours of sleep. That's all it is. And then we get to the numbers. We've had claims over the last year, 2 years, that Trump is 6'3", and his weight is somewhere in the high 2 teens, like 219, or maybe it's like 224 or something like that. That means Trump's lost a lot of weight, number one, all while eating fast food and supposedly drinking gallons of whole milk, according to his claims at the Milk Summit. So that seems extraordinarily difficult to believe. And of course, if you look at pictures of Trump from years past and now, it certainly doesn't look like he's lost a whole bunch of weight. So where we get is a Trump in 2026 that, despite claims of endless vitality and virility and strength and stamina, he is allegedly working a significantly diminished schedule as we see and hear the deterioration. You'll remember that when it came out that Biden was like doing a 10-4 or something like that, trying to keep events 10-4. The Trump team, Trump wasn't president then, of course, Trump the candidate and the Trump team said that that is not the schedule of someone that is operating on all cylinders. Now Donald Trump is reportedly doing an even more restricted schedule, 12-5. Of course, they deny it. But you look at the calendar and you see that it is mostly true. Multiple reports, and we see videos of Trump dozing off. There was the cannabis reform press conference. There was the Milk Summit, cabinet meetings. And the White House says sometimes he closes his eyes. he reflects because he's so engaged with. Sorry, I almost fell asleep there. He's not sleeping, is what they tell us. So we have an incredible split screen right now. On the left side, metaphorically, it's perfect cognition, robust health, an incredible athlete with unmatched energy. And then the video comes in and we say, this guy is extraordinarily confused. He's inventing history. He's confusing geography. He's dragging his leg. His face droops. His bruised hands are covered in makeup and bandages. And he disappears after dinner and sometimes falls asleep during it. So if you just go by the memos, this is a superhero. If you watch the video, you see a guy who clearly is being protected by a fortress of public relations. And so for me, the question is no longer, is Trump healthy? It's who's actually in charge of the country from 5 p.m. until noon the next day. And will we ever learn the truth about Trump's health before it's too late, if you know what I mean?
Significant news.
Nah, ni en mí mismo confío. Si quieres quedarte, hoy que hace frío y mañana te vas. Nah, muchas quieren mi baby gravy, quieren tener mi primogénito.
Significant news on Monday coming out of Ghislaine Maxwell's virtual deposition in front of the House Oversight Committee.
Zelensky claims that
Trump was so pissed about Bad Bunny's halftime show that he posted this picture of him taking over the globe again. Here's a close-up. Alaska, Canada, Greenland, the USA, Venezuela's down there.
The president is now insisting he did not make a mistake after that blatantly racist video was posted on his own social media account, and the president is now claiming that he did not see the part of the video that depicted former President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama as apes. The president's comments coming after an avalanche of backlash over the video that was posted late Thursday night. But at first, the White House press secretary defended the president's post, saying, please stop the fake outrage. But the criticism only grew from there, including from Republican leaders who rarely disagree with President Trump on anything. For instance, Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina, the Senate's only black Republican, called Trump's post the most racist thing I've seen out of this White House. Congressman Mike Turner of Ohio called the post offensive, heartbreaking, and unacceptable. Then about 12 hours after the video was posted, it was taken down. After that, a White House official told ABC News that a White House staffer erroneously made the post, but Gio, the press secretary, has not walked back her defense of the racist image, and the president is not apologizing.
All right, Selena, thank you so much for your reporting there.
Jake Paul just tried to defend Donald Trump and ICE, and it backfired beautifully. Now, if you missed it, Jake Paul is at the Winter Olympics with J.D. Vance, because apparently Paul is a big-time Trump supporter. Also at the Winter Olympics, U.S. athletes are calling out Donald Trump and ICE for the things that they're doing here at home. Well, Jake Paul decided he was the hero that Donald Trump needed, trying to defend both. First with Trump saying, please be quiet. From all true Americans, if you don't want to represent this country, go live somewhere else. Well, people were quick to point out that Jake Paul did leave this country. He went to Puerto Rico, which is still part of the U.S., but he did it for tax purposes. And then he tried to defend ICE, saying if you don't like ICE, then you can't call 911 when you're in trouble. And people jumped all over that to let him know if you call 911, ICE isn't showing up. That's a completely different thing. Now, it's a distinct possibility that Jake Paul is not going to understand what people are saying in the replies. He's not going to realize that he was just owned, but it is absolutely beautiful to see.
So late last week, Donald Trump went to the National Prayer Breakfast and somehow turned it into a 1-hour ego cleanse. He stood in front of clergy and cameras and said, I probably won't get into heaven, but I think I should. That's not theology. That's a self-written character reference. Then he admits he has never read the Bible. But don't worry, he is still God's strongest messenger. Apparently faith is optional if confidence is loud enough. Next, he complains that religious people vote Democrat at a prayer breakfast because Jesus now has a party registration. Then he says he needed to win the election for his own ego, not for the country, and I encourage you to remember that during the midterms. Then he takes credit for bringing back Christmas, like the holiday was missing until he found it behind a couch that JD fucked. He talks about watching for missiles on planes. Explains a lot. He praises foreign...
The Trump administration was sued for a sweeping pause of immigrant visa processing for people from 75 countries. The freeze, which started last month, was aimed at nations the administration said, quote, whose migrants take welfare from the American people at unacceptable rates. This comes on top of full or partial travel and visa restrictions on citizens from 39 countries, which federal officials say are necessary to prevent overstays and protect national security. Liz Landers.
Workers had to be bribed to attend Pete Hegseth's speech at a Maine shipyard today, even the ones who voted for Trump.